Now, another session on cybersecurity. So we agreed that cybersecurity is very important and we need to address it. And now we will dive deep into the regulations and the standards shaping this area. So please, Michael Klinger, the floor is yours.
Hello, Michael Klinger from ETAS. I'm in charge of cybersecurity topic for Western Europe. Just start with one question. Who has an Android device, phone, tablet? Raise your hand. Okay. When have you updated your last version? More than 1 month? Less than 1 month? 15 days? 1 week? Okay, just be aware that there is a critical vulnerabilities, several of them, allowing DDoS take on control of your phone, published the 1st of October. Just on introduction. So cybersecurity, it's also related to us as a user. The slides, please. So just to start a very small presentation of who is ETAS, the regulation dedicated to the more OEMs and their tiers. And okay, I don't have any more backup here. The Cyber Resilience Act and some standard and regulation around the world. So ETAS is a subsidiary of Robert Bosch Group. So Bosch Group, it's 4,030 persons around the world, and we are only 3,000. We are located in 12 countries, working with most of all the OEMs and the tiers. And here is what we are talking about. It's not a charging point, it's not a vehicle, it's a very, very big ecosystem. And if we take into account the vehicle at the center, you can see that this vehicle has a lot of interconnection, including that each vehicle is connected to everything. And one of those connections, here it's for the Mobena and Vedecom, it's of course the charging point station. By the way, for all these links, there are already a lot of attacks. So tomorrow, this vehicle will be connected to the smart city. So imagine what can happen. By the way, in North America, a vehicle is considered under very big IoT. So it's why there is a regulation, the R155, associated to the ISO 21444. Just to be very, to show you the map, all the main countries are applying this regulation, and we will see that even if these countries are not with the UNECE R155 like China, they have similar standard. And in a nutshell, who is impacted? Every vehicle that go in our road, including starting in January 25, the two-wheelers. Even if there is only one product with some intelligence, they are impacted by cybersecurity. And what it means that for an OEM, the OEM, as we talked a little this morning about homologation, an OEM has to comply to this regulation. Without complying on one part on the 7.2 of the regulation, it's governance. It's already addressed this morning, and the 7.3, it's technical. Without that compliance, an OEM is not able to sell any more in Europe, any vehicle. So imagine that it's a small challenge for the OEMs and their tiers. And this type of approval, it's only valid for 3 years. And what we are talking about for cybersecurity from design until end of life. Some Belgian study proved that a vehicle life cycle is around 40 years. How to maintain in the vehicle domain the vulnerability management system, the cybersecurity state of the art during 40 years is not feasible, but who will pay? And again, two parts, technical part, governance, and of course we are talking also about the production. And that means that the risk analysis has to be maintained during the life cycle, and also that all the stakeholders, all the suppliers are to be managed by the OEMs. But as the OEMs is not able to do everything by themselves, they will request, and they are already requesting, to all the actors contributing to the vehicle, including maybe the application that will be embedded in the infotainment, to be compliant to the ISO SIA 2144. Currently, all the OEMs are sending requests for quotation information to their tiers. If their tiers are not in the path to become certified, they are not selected. There is some discussion to say, even maybe, as I said, the application provider in the infotainment is not still clear. So the ISO 2144, you have on the right part of the screen the synopsis of the ISO, and you will see that there is two big parts, organizational and the technical part. On the organizational point of view, it's, are you able to manage cybersecurity? Have you trained your people? You're aware? Have you trained your people to update your Android device? Just to remind the first question, because here it's also awareness that everybody has to take into account. And on the technical side, are you able to prove to the authority that your architecture is secure? Are you able to prove to the authority that you are able to maintain the cybersecurity level of the product until the end of life? Currently, the main challenge that OEMs and tiers have is how long they will have this contract between OEMs tier. Clearly, 40 years is not acceptable. So the average is between 8 years and 15 years. So it was for the automotive domain. And you will say, okay, I'm not in the automotive domain, I'm not directly linked to that. It's a shame, but now, starting January 25, you will have in Europe to comply to the Cyber Resilience Act. If your product organization is not already under another kind of regulation, you have to comply to the CRA. In other words, you have to comply to the cybersecurity from design until the end of life. What the CRA, just to avoid to read everything, it's, is your product sold in Europe? Is your product managing data? Yes. So you have to comply to the CRA. Is your product processing data? You have to comply. Meaning, charging point station has to comply. So in a nutshell, what is the topic? It's you have to prove to the authority that when the attack will come, and I repeat, when the attack will come, because we know that it will come, you have taken into account the cybersecurity. An important thing, it's the product, but to be able to do that, you have to take into account the life cycle, putting in place also the vulnerability management system. How you will be able to update and to alert the authorities that you have a vulnerability. As I said, here is a little the synoptic. if your product, software, or cloud, or services is dealing with data, personal or not, data, you have to comply to the CRA. If not, you will have some penalties as for the GDPR. And when the authority will come, if you didn't have planned your homework before, as the GDPR, it will be a little tricky. Another one point, interesting also to highlight in Europe, it's less for a product, it's more for the company, IT. It's the NIS2 Directive. Why this one? It's to highlight, because here you can see that if your company, your workshop, your offices has more than 50 persons, you have to comply to the NIS2 Directive. So what it means that, for example, we have some OEMs here, what is not clear, it's how each country will implement this European directive locally in the country, because every country will adapt to its own market the directive. But if we take as example Renault or Stellantis, there are some workshops that they have more than 50 persons working in this workshop. Do Stellantis or Renault has to declare as an entity regarding this NIS directive? Imagine the amount of entity of company to declare to the national authority. In France, it will be the ANSI. In Germany, BSI. It's not clear. Nobody knows. So there are a lot of legal persons dealing with the ENISA for the authority. Again, what is very, very important to highlight, as for the UNECE 155 and the ISO 21434, the supply chain has to be managed. You have to manage the cybersecurity of your suppliers. You have to be sure and to ensure that your supplier are able to deal with cybersecurity. It's your role. You are an OEM, you have to manage the cybersecurity of your tiers. You are a charging point operator, you have to manage your supplier. You are a manufacturer of charging station, you have to manage the cybersecurity of your supplier. Just to come back to the 5111.8, to highlight that the Federal Highway Administration published this year that they enforce for next year, so it will be, no, it's already applicable, sorry, the application of the 1511.8, and also they recommend a certification, even if this administration is aware that there is not enough capacity to certify. Nevertheless, in the US, it's already mandatory if you want to be part of the vehicle-to-grid ecosystem to comply to the standard 1511.8. I did not mention China, very complex country. You can see that in total you have more than 11 regulations, more than 100 standards. But to resume, they are taking into account as all the regulations are presenting the cybersecurity at the same level. And if you want to address the Chinese market, you will have some specificity regarding in particular the crypto and what you share there. So be aware about that if you go to China, but you will have to take into account cybersecurity. So in this domain, we call the software-defined vehicle. ETAS is providing all the solution to comply to the cybersecurity that I'm representing, but also to support you to implement the cybersecurity, and for the embedded domain and the embedded part solution, as well for the vehicle itself or for the backend, to support you in the implementation of your solution, including basic software for the embedded part, our solution coming back to the cybersecurity, our security module, it's already deployed in more than 100 million of vehicles, etc. And from a consulting point of view, here it's a security portfolio. You see that we have an extensive portfolio regarding cybersecurity, as well for engineering, for consulting, addressing all the regulation, as well for the technical part or governance part, vulnerability management system, security operations center, in order to support you to comply to these regulations. Thank you.